absolutely. Well, yeah, I guess we'll end the show now talking about my team. The Vancouver Canucks are not doing so well right now.
Mention them with that tone of voice. It makes me feel warm and fuzzy.
Yeah, they're 2-10. It's been frustrating, man. Like I think on every game other than maybe 2, we outshot our opponents by more than 15 to 20 shots, and we're the better team almost every night. Yet we're still finding ways to lose. And the main thing right now is we just can't score. Like, we're averaging 1 to 2 goals a game, and as good as Luongo's been, and Luongo's been terrific, you can't win scoring 1 to 2 goals a game. I mean, unless you're playing...
So what's up with that? Is that... So I was watching an interview with John Tortorella, and he said he'd broken up the Sedin twins, but that he was putting them back together again?
Yeah, he's been shuffling lines all over the place in the last 10 games trying to see what works. I mean, he's had some success doing that, but the problem is even when he switches the lines up, it can't stay consistent. So he'll do the line switch, it'll work one game, he'll try and keep the lines together because it's worked, and then it just won't work, and he'll have to do it again. So, I mean, he hasn't found something consistent yet. Granted, guys like, David Booth, Dale Weiss, Jannik Hansen, guys have just come off of bad injuries. They're still regaining their form. They're not really quite ready yet. I mean, they're playing, but they're not at 100%. So, I mean, there's still some injury woes, as it were. And obviously you have guys like Zach Kassian who've been really inconsistent. Booth is a question mark. Like, he just has not been good at all since he became a Canuck. I mean, granted, he's been injured for a lot of it, so it might not be a fair assessment, but Booth is a guy that can score, 25 goals, and he just hasn't looked that great.
And I've heard, people keep telling me to shut up about Booth, but I'm just like, prove me wrong. Like, he was supposed to be a 40-goal scorer when you picked him up, 4 seasons ago now?
3, yeah, but I mean, yeah, he's
yet to have one.
He's
yet to have a good season. He's yet to be a consistent goal scorer. He's yet to be a consistent, solid forward.
No,
and I criticize him every year, and it's weird because most of my Canuck fan friends are like you. They're very knowledgeable and they know a good player from a bad player, but there's this weird guarding around David Booth. I don't know if it's his salary that people are sensitive about or whatever.
Yeah, he's making
he's not as good as they had hoped he was going to be. Not even close.
No, he's making 4.5 a year, and he's scored like 10 goals collectively or 15 goals collectively in these 3 seasons. Granted, he came at the trade deadline the year after the Bruins run. And he did okay, but he only played, like a month and a half with us. And then the next year after that was the lockout. And when we came back from the lockout, he was injured for all of 7 games. And then this year, he got injured in training camp, didn't have a training camp, so he wasn't able to practice before the season started. He finally came back, a couple weeks ago. But his season just started 2 weeks ago without training camp. So, I mean, part of me, it gives him the benefit of the doubt because he hasn't had a full year yet really to show us his stuff. But the other side of me is just like, well, maybe
how much patience do we got to give you?
Yeah, and maybe that Florida season where he got the 30 goals was a bit of a fluke. Granted, he was playing with Mike Santorelli, who's now also a Canuck and has been without a doubt our best pickup. He's just been a godsend. Santorelli's been incredible. Like, what a signing for Gillis that was. Just nobody thought he'd be that good, centering your second line the way he has been. And the same could be said for our rookie defenseman, Ryan Stanton, who's second in the league right now in rookie defenseman scoring. So, I mean, Ryan Stanton is a huge story for the Canucks as well. He's been outstanding, considering we just picked him up as like a 7th guy, and now he's in our top 4. So, I mean, Stanton's been a great story as well. But then equally, you got guys like Booth, Hansen, Higgins. Burrows has been injured pretty much the entire year and has finally came back just a few weeks ago. He has yet to score a goal. Burrows hasn't scored a goal. Been getting chances left, right, and center. He's looked great, looking really good, getting lots of opportunities, just hasn't had any puck luck. So you got like 4 or 5 guys on the Canucks right now which are just not carrying their weight. And that's your secondary scoring. Like, you need those. It can't just be the Sedins and Kessler. Like, you need secondary scoring. And the Canucks secondary scoring has not been there. Booth is a complete question mark. Nobody has any idea what's going on with him. But at the same time, you kind of got to give the guy some patience. He actually looked really good last night.
What choice do you have at this stage? No one's going to take that contract.
Oh, no.
So you don't have a choice. You're not going to send him to the minors.
He either does good this year or we buy him out at the end of the year.
Exactly.
So one of 2 things. He actually did look really good last night. He was probably the first game he's played this year where I was like, ooh, cool. I haven't seen that before. Like, power forward, rushed to the net, deked a couple guys out. Like, he showed some flashes of, the player we thought he would be. So there's still part of me that's like, you know what? Give him a bit more time. He might find his game. this is his first full year with the team, if you can believe it, since we got him. So, I mean, give him some time. If he's still playing this way by March, then, it's all is lost. But we'd probably be out of a playoff spot by then anyways if we keep playing the way we are. But part of me just wants to give him a bit more time because I still think he's got something to offer. And I don't think he's been given a full chance. But nevertheless, it's been depressing in Vancouver just because the team's been playing really well. Like I would almost prefer them to have played terribly the last 10 games and just been like, yeah, write this off. We're just not playing well right now. We deserve those losses. But like one of the losses was the first one was against San Jose. They scored to tie it up with like a minute left in the game and we lose in overtime. What happens last night against LA? We're up 2-1, 2 minutes to go in the game. They tie it up, score in overtime. So I mean, it's just like a couple of fluky losses like that. Where
you're doing the exact opposite as us. We're getting the lead, and then the third period is like, oh god, oh god, oh god, oh god, oh god, oh god, we're okay. Like that's
we're just not scoring. Like
games I've watched, it's like, are we gonna make it? Oh, Carey Price is gonna stand on his head. We're good.
When we score 3 or more goals in this year when we score 3 or more goals, we're 12-0-1. When we score two or less, we're like 1-13 or 2-13 or something like that. So
that's a big statement right there.
Yeah, it's a crazy stat. So it shows you like when the team scores, they have the talent to hold the lead and win. They're just not scoring goals right now, and I don't know. I mean, even Tortorella in the interview says the same thing. He's just like, I don't know what to tell you. Like, we're playing well. And people could see it. People could see the effort. They see that we are playing good hockey. Like that game against Chicago where we ultimately lost 2-1, we were with them up until the very end. Like that was an awesome hockey game. Probably the best game of the year for us to play. Like as a team, it was probably our best game of the year that we ultimately lost. We just won one little lapse against a team like Chicago, and that's all it takes. It's in the back of the net. But we were right with them until the very end. That was some terrific hockey. We looked really, really good, and it was really uplifting to see that. And even after that game, Tortorella is just like sort of shakes his head. He's just like, I don't know what to tell you because we're putting in the effort. Guys are playing well. The team looks good. We're getting the chances. We're just not burying them. And I mean, one of two things will happen. This will either be so demoralizing that the season gets written off, or they'll, start getting some puck luck, which I like to believe is probably what will happen. They'll start getting some puck luck. They'll win a couple in a row, and then they'll be back on track. So I think it's a matter of sticking with it, getting a couple bounces, which they just haven't been getting, and sometimes that's what the game of hockey is. It's a game of bounces. Bounces determine Stanley Cup sometimes. So I mean, yeah, that's sometimes all it takes. Is you got to get exactly. You got to get a couple bounces. You got to get a couple wins back to back, and then you're off to the races. So I mean, they're a good team. I think I'm still pretty much guaranteeing you they're making the playoffs because they are good. They just have to get the bounces to go their way. If they start playing worse than this and they continue to lose, well, then it's a different story. But right now, I think the Canucks are looking good, and I don't know. I'm not as negative about it as some people in Vancouver. Obviously, the city of Vancouver. People like to jump on the bandwagon.
Off that bandwagon right away.
Yeah, exactly. So it's a lot of naysaying.
There's a bomb! Oh, no, it's a can of soup.
A lot of naysaying going on in Vancouver right now. But I like Tortorella. I agree with him. I think the team's playing well. It's just got to get a couple bounces, get a couple wins back to back, and then they'll be back on track. So
I think regardless, I mean, unless the season completely collapses at this point, Tortorella has shown that he is a good coach, that he can motivate these players.
Oh, he's been great. He's been great.
And honestly, I think if he doesn't, I don't think anybody can. I think that if you're looking to fire Tortorella within the next 12 months, you're looking in the wrong places. It's your lineup. Something is not working there, and it's time to change that.
Your core elements have to be shaken up more than they were this season of rebuilding that it was supposed to be, and the core group is still all together. So maybe you actually need a true rebuild. But then if that's the case, maybe Gillis won't be around to see it. So, but obviously that's That's looking on the negative end. We'll cross that bridge if and when we come to it. If the Canucks miss the playoffs this year, Gillis is probably out of a job, and the team's probably going to get seriously shaken up, even more than it did in this offseason. But
as a fan, I mean, sometimes that's what you want to see. I mean, obviously you want to see your fan at the top, but as a Montreal fan, man, I can tell you the last thing you want to see is your team sneak into the 8th spot 7 years in a row, and anybody in your upper management too afraid to pull the trigger because there's this sliver of hope. I mean, biff it, and there's no choices left. You just do it, and it's for the better of the organization. So
yeah, but that's a lot of hypothetical situations. We'll see what happens and play it year by year. And I mean, I'm still hopeful. I still think it's going to be a good year. I think we're going to turn things around and get on the right track. But then again, I've been a Canucks fan my entire life, and part of me just kind of feels programmed to say that. So,
Yeah.
who knows, right? Yeah. So on that depressing note, we'll wrap things up. Thank you guys for joining us, and my name's Andy Cole.
My name is Justin Boniface. Thanks for tuning in, guys.
Have a good night.
Thanks for listening to the BCIT Podcast Network. To hear more great internet radio in your ears, like us on Facebook at facebook.com/BCIT Podcast and follow us on Twitter at BCIT Podcast.